Every year we do a Future of Retail report. This year we are taking a bit more of a speculative approach and looking 21 years into the future to try to forecast what the environment will look like for brands and retailers, for the consumer, as well as supply chain, logistics, manufacturing, all of those supporting services within the retail environment. As we looked at that, as we looked at the research, we tried to establish what we called future retail truths, which we think will come to define the landscape in 2042. We took a look at a lot of the technologies that were shaping the market today and tried to tease those out in terms of some of the big shifts that will enable for, again, both consumers and businesses. We talk about things like digital twins now, which primarily kind of exist within the manufacturing space and maybe the automotive space, and thinking about what that means when every product has a digital twin that exists in the virtual world, both as we think about the metaverse, but then also thinking about the touch points that creates between consumers and businesses. We talk about the idea of AI and what that means when we each essentially have a personalized AI assistant that does a number of things in our lives, but then potentially even does our shopping for us, finding the best deals, personalizing things, etc. Talking about the notion of products as assets. So this idea that anything that I or you or anyone listening in may own has value associated with it. We see that with the resale marketplace sort of burgeoning up around sneakers and luxury items and NFTs and all of these things, but that sort of idea of the stock market being sort of broadcast against anything we own, and the ability to sort of sell and exchange those with others fluidly within the market. And then talking about things like on-demand delivery and as we get closer to the consumer, both physically and in terms of time, what that ultimately looks like, as well as the manufacturing that sort of supports all of this, as that potentially gets smaller, more bespoke, and ultimately can make one one products and have those to the consumer very rapidly. I'll stop there and just sort of highlight those, and then talk through very quickly the three themes. So the way that we've kind of shaped this report is to sort of take those retail truths and position them in the context of a 2042 marketplace, where we see these sort of three big themes shaping. One being the meta mall, two being the OmniConsumer, and then three being what we're calling the on-demand brand. Hyphens factor in very appropriately within 2042, apparently. But let me sort of take you through each of those one by one here. So this idea of the meta mall, I think we're all sort of steeped in this, all the conversations that are happening right now around the metaverse, whether that's Facebook sort of positioning itself, moving from a social media network into a metaverse company, and what that potentially means. There's a lot that's happening right now in the sort of broader landscape. For us, I think we're looking at the hybrid way that consumers live today and businesses live today. By virtue of the fact that we all have mobile phones in our pockets, we're sort of always straddling the physical and digital worlds. And that obviously is something that has been happening slowly within the retail marketplace. At the same time, we see social media and gaming having become these sort of mainstream platforms that are now reaching much wider audiences. And imagining what that looks like when those two worlds merge in many ways. And then put a layer of commerce within that. So in a virtual context, you have the mall essentially existing in an immersive online world where you can buy both digital and potentially physical goods that you get delivered to your home, as well as sort of thinking about the digital layer that pervasively can exist on top of the physical world. And so we see things like AR being the sort of leading indicator of this, but all of these conversations right now thinking about what wearable AR might look like and what that might mean for the world going forward, and being able to seamlessly access that within a physical store, within the physical world, and what that ultimately can mean in terms of how we shop and interact. The second idea for us is what we're calling the OmniConsumer. And really for us, this is an evolution of what we might already be thinking about in terms of the empowered consumer. The recognition that consumers have much more agency within the marketplace today. They have much more say and power in terms of their interactions with brands. They also have much higher expectations in terms of what they want from brands, what they want to see from brands as well. And so as we think about 2042, we see that consumers are not just consumers anymore. They're CEOs and creative directors of their own brands, by virtue of the fact that they can now reach audiences, whether big or small, through social media. They can sell influence, they can sell their content, and more what we're starting to see is that they can also sell products. For us, that's on behalf of other brands. So this idea of affiliate marketing sort of being available to anyone. Resale marketplace, as I already mentioned at the jump, we have this sort of burgeoning resale market, which is now peer-to-peer and seemingly is existing in so many different phases. And then what we're starting to see is the leading edges of the creator economy sort of pushing into product development and new services, whether that's new manufacturing services, new e-commerce services, new finance services that enable people to take that influence and start selling products of their own design to others in the market. And so that's really exciting. It creates an opportunity for there to be so many more brands than exist today, and sort of changes the conversation about what a brand might be. And then finally, speaking of brands, we have this idea around this third theme that we're calling the on-demand brand. And for us, this is really sort of thinking about the role that brands and companies play in consumers' lives and how they get that much more close in terms of proximity to consumers, and also find new and interesting ways to integrate themselves into the context of customers' everyday lives. And so there's a couple factors here. One is this notion of sort of anytime, anywhere availability that is being driven by new ways of sort of manufacturing, smaller warehouses closer to where consumers live, new manufacturing techniques that allow for rapid and bespoke manufacturing at scale. Alongside that, this notion of sort of rapid delivery, getting items to consumers almost instantaneously. We're seeing 15-minute grocery now being almost a new standard within the marketplace. But what happens when we even think about new forms of delivery, autonomous vehicles and the like starting to populate? And then beyond that, we think about the sort of post-purchase probably is where we see this integration more deeply into consumers' lives taking place, when a brand is able to recognize, based on shopping behaviors, maybe even sensors on products, when things are going to be running out, being able to deliver more sort of high value services around product ownership, usage, et cetera, that we're starting to see relative to sort of on products, or products being treated as media channels and new touch points, throughout the supply chain, but then ultimately once it gets into a consumer's home, creating a new relationship between consumers and brands. So a lot of exciting things happening that we see within this report. We bring this to life, not only with the retail truths that I touched on, but also we talk about a number of trends that we see driving this in the market today, always bringing in leading case studies to help support that and bring that to life.